Hi everyone, and welcome to this episode of Virtuell Hverdag. Today I'm talking with Elin Hauge. Elin's probably one of the most knowledgeable people which we have in Norway about how to utilize data to improve your processes and business outcomes. So in today's episode we're talking mostly about why so few companies in Norway have managed to utilize AI and how they can change and start on this journey. Hi Elin.
Hi.
Thanks for coming over.
My pleasure. Thanks for inviting me.
I understand that you just recently had a presentation here.
Yep.
What was the topic about?
I was talking about the obstacles of applying AI in Norwegian businesses. Things are just moving way too slowly.
Oh, I completely concur with that. But what are the obstacles which we are facing? Why aren't we moving faster?
There are probably many reasons for that, and I brought up two. One reason might very well be the digital savviness of boards, or the lack of, in fact.
Like political boards or company boards?
No, company boards. But it could also be political leadership, management teams. An American study performed by MIT Sloan on more than 1,000 American companies with a revenue of more than $1 million showed that boards that they would call digitally savvy of companies, or to turn it around, companies with boards that are digitally savvy, they have a 38% higher top-line growth than the rest of the companies in the study.
I completely believe in that.
And the interesting thing is that the definition of digitally savvy in this case was at least 3 members had to be digitally savvy, have some kind of digital competence, not necessarily as computer scientists or architects, but at least some kind of competence on digital technologies. Because just one person would just be
the rest.
Yeah, but the one person would be like the odd geek in the corner, right? And 2 would be the odd couple at the end of the table. And so you need 3 to really make a difference in a team of colleagues. And I think this is completely parallel in leadership teams of any kind. You can't just have one digitally savvy person and that person becomes your alibi for digital competence.
Absolutely. But what does it mean to be digitally savvy? Does it mean that you actually need to have engineer background, or that you just is it interested in technology?
Well, I think that's a really good question. And I didn't find an exact definition, but it is about the ability to understand digital technologies and the potential of those technologies, which means that you need to know some technical topics and you need to have some feeling with what are these technologies
and
in
how
fact
can
about
we apply them.
And how can we apply them. But I do think that the most important part is just that, how can we apply them? That's the most important part, and that's where I think a lot of Norwegian boards and leader teams they lack this competence of actually understanding how can we apply these technologies. Because if they had them, they wouldn't have been in the current situation.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so.
And I also believe that one of the main ways of gaining that knowledge is through experimentation.
Yeah, I agree.
But we are not doing enough experimentation or testing here in Norway because we have quite strict regulations and quite a strict, or maybe even a lack of technological understanding. But how do we remedy that? Like, how do we move forward?
I think that's a topic of leadership. I think Norwegian leaders are not typically very interested in taking much risk. They are measured by their KPIs and they follow those KPIs. And there's not much willingness to do other things or to challenge those KPIs. Which means that basically because they're risk averse, they don't do the new stuff because the new stuff is risky, it's unknown, you don't know what's at the other end and you might be wrong. And as long as you're punished for being wrong, and not rewarded for taking the risk, then why would you?
Exactly. But when we're talking about companies, if we look away from the board, but look at the chief directives, most companies in Norway still have a CTO, ISO, Chief Security Officer, and all of those roles. Aren't they enough to move the technological progress forward?
No, because then we're back to the magical number of 3. Because if you have that one CTO and the rest don't understand anything, you have the same problem. That poor CTO is trying his or her best, but still, you don't get
The
much
finance says
further.
we can't afford that.
No, and then it's not just business as usual. Because what you really need to understand is how these new technologies will impact your business model. That's what you need to really understand. To have this one poor person, that one hostage, basically, your digital hostage, it doesn't really help, does it? You can say, well, yeah, we have a digital hostage.
Yeah,
Well,
like we have a digital minister in Norway.
yeah, poor hostage. Yeah, but I think we really need to realize that one hostage doesn't help. You need to have
Several hostages.
You need to have
Make a crowd.
You need a crowd, not a hostage,
Okay,
basically.
I understand.
Yeah.
And what's the correct way forward? I know that it's probably company dependent, but what do you foresee as the easiest way? Is to recruit more people with technology experience, or is to educate those people that you already have, so the CFO, the COO, and those roles?
I think you need to do both. For several reasons. One reason is that there won't be enough people in the market if you're going to only recruit. The other thing is that you need all those people with the business experience and the skills in other domains, like finance, like different types of operations, like HR. And you need them, and you need their experience. And that's important also when we talk about the boards, that we need digitally savvy people into the boards. Does not mean that we're going to exchange experienced people with 25-year-olds straight from school. What it does mean is that a lot of people aged 40, 50, maybe 60 plus need to take the time to sit down and actually upgrade their skills. So yes, I think it's both. We both need to upgrade the skills of the existing workforce, and we need to recruit more people with the right competence.
I agree. But for people that are 40, 50, 60 and are looking at the vast technological landscape, it's really hard to decide where should I start. So you get sort of consumer confusion.
Yeah.
And then you simply don't act because it's way too many choices and it's way too difficult to keep yourself updated on all the different aspects. What do you recommend they should start with?
Well, you need to stop using that as an excuse for not doing anything. Then just start somewhere. Start reading tech news. Start there. At least get the headlines. You read MIT Tech Review, or take a course at Coursera or some other online free resource site, or take a university program. But there are so many ways. Do something. At least dedicate a few hours every week to upgrade your skills.
Yeah,
Do
I completely
something,
agree.
at least. Yeah.
Because a lot of people have plans and companies use a lot of time to create strategies about how we should have continuous evolution of employees, but few actually do evolve their skills and take on new courses.
Yeah, because the consulting industry, they make a lot of money on this insecurity. You know, there's a company with insecurity about AI. Oh, let's do a strategy process. It's lots of money in that for the consulting industry. The same with digitalization. Let's make a digitalization strategy. Money for the consulting industry. And I've been working in the consulting industry for the last few years, so I know I'm annoying some
Part of the problem.
I'm part of the problem. But I also tend to tell customers and colleagues that we are, in fact, part of the problem, and we need to start actually helping customers doing things and not just making strategies. Because I think making a digitalization strategy or an AI strategy is kind of the wrong track, because what you really need to do is to understand how these technologies are going to impact your business strategy. That's where you need to start.
How?
Well, you need to look at your market, your consumers, what is happening, who are your challenges in this market, what is your business model 5 years from now, 10 years from now. That's what you need to focus on. And if you look at the large retailers, which is one of the obvious examples right now with all the headlines in the media, they really need to look at what are we 5 years ahead, 10 years ahead. We are competing with Amazon on one hand, or Alibaba. On the other hand, we're competing with grandma by the kitchen table. Where are we going to be? And the traditional value chain doesn't work anymore. And that's what they need to start with. And then technology is just an enabler. So is AI, because AI is just an advanced form of digitalization.
Yeah, absolutely is. Do you believe that AI will have a really big impact on all industries, or just some industries that need to have, for example, a chief AI officer? Or do you need to have that hostage in every company?
Good question. I hope sometime in the near future we will stop talking about AI as the one bucket of all definitions. Because if you look a few years back, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, our definition of artificial intelligence has been completely different to what it is now. We keep pushing the boundaries of what is in fact artificial intelligence.
We're still including in the same bucket.
And still we have those same buckets. So I think we will stop talking about artificial intelligence as this foggy thing that we don't really manage to grasp, and start talking more about data-driven businesses. And data-driven in this context just means that we add some machine learning on top of it, basically to make sense of our data. It's not magic. It's not some artificial ghost out there. It's just maths on top of the data we already have, and we use that to make sense out of our business.
Yeah, because now for the longest time we already have collected quite a lot of data.
Yeah.
We've never been able to utilize that properly.
No.
And you believe that in the future now, the next 3-5 years, we're going to see a lot more utilization of that data to make decisions.
Yeah. And really, because we have used statistics for many years. That's a natural part of reporting and business analysis. Now we're just adding a bit more advanced methods of analysis on top of that, which is machine learning.
Hi everyone, and sorry for the short interruption. But if you come this far into the podcast, it means that we do something right here at Virtuell Hverdag. So I would love if you can just spend 2-3 seconds to rate, comment, or share this podcast. It would mean very much to me. So thank you, and back to the episode. But if we go back to how we started this conversation, you said that here in Norway we aren't moving fast enough.
No.
Why not? Is it because we trust our gut feeling more than data? Or why aren't we implementing more machine learning and AI into our businesses to have that data-driven decision?
Well, as I started talking about the competence of boards, but if we look at leaders as well, they need to gain more competence of these technologies so that they in fact do understand which decisions they need to make and how these data can somehow create more insight for them. So that's one side. I think the other side to this that we need to have some kind of empathy with is that the degree of change is also an obstacle here.
Okay.
Now, we've been talking about like the Toyota way, continuous improvement since like year 2000, and continuous improvement is relatively easy, right? So it's, as a business leader, it's easy to make a decision on making things a little bit better. I can improve the customer journey, I can improve the efficiency of my work processes. As long as there's a business case, it's easy to make that decision. But if we look at what's happening now with all these new digital technologies, we're talking about disruption. Like retail is a very good example. And Kodak has been used as a case for many years. The point is that you have traditional companies with their traditional value chains, and they have a huge legacy. And very often they are asset heavy, financially heavy. They have physical assets, factories, logistics, warehouses, stores. A lot of money are tied to those assets and those business models. And those business models, they have lived for decades. It's extremely hard as a leader to go to the board and say, hey guys and girls, let's just ditch everything we've been doing for the last 50 years because that's not going to work tomorrow. Which leader is going to go to his or her board and say, hey, no, let's do something new. Let's throw everything away.
Those leaders that want the company to survive.
Yeah, but it really takes a lot of guts and
absolutely
an
does.
extreme amount of competence to make that decision. And I think sometimes it's just impossible to make that decision, like in the Kodak
I completely
case.
agree with you.
Because
So-
Kodak, the old Kodak business, was really about chemistry. They couldn't just change their factories to semiconductors. Like they just can't. It doesn't work. They would have to move into completely new industries. So that's why I'm saying this degree of change is an obstacle. And it's difficult. I mean, none of us would be able to go to the board and say, hey, let's do something else.
I completely agree. That's what I also said, because it's not that plausible. Few leaders can actually still make that decision, even if they understand that this is what we have to do. As you said, most boards don't have the technological competency to be able to support that type of decision.
No.
So even though the leader sees that we have to change course or we'll drown, is still probably not capable of making that change.
No.
So how do you foresee in the next, let's say, 5-10 years? Will a lot of the existing companies basically go under for the disrupting it?
I think so. A lot of companies will die. A lot of big companies will die. Change owners, complete change of leadership. We will see some massive changes.
And you believe that when those changes are made, we'll have more technological competent people within the steering committee?
Yeah, I think so, because you will have to have new people on board. Yeah.
And then recruit those nerds.
Yeah, and also more and more people do in fact build that competence. So you have more and more people in the market that can actually take those kinds of positions and also have some business experience.
Do you believe Norway will take inspiration from other countries as well? Will we see more of this type of implementation, like US or China? Will we have more?
And I think we will see more people from different countries working together.
Like cross-national?
Yeah, and people moving around to work in different parts of the world. And we also now, we don't need to travel to Singapore to work with Singapore. Yeah, I can work with Singapore from Oslo.
And that's really interesting, because the technological advancement which are already made there, we basically could already start utilizing here in Norway.
Yeah.
But again, then, what is the way forward? If I'm now an employee in a large technological company, how can I affect my company? I'm not the leader. I can't affect the board of directors. What can I do as a single employee?
Yeah, good question. But I think we can all take part in building competence. We can all take part in bringing up discussions, bringing ideas to the table. And I think this goes for consultants as well. Try to come up with ideas where you can at the same time minimize the risk of applying that idea to real life. And that's why I often talk about proof of concept as proof of concept hell, because traditionally the consulting industry has sold proof of concept for like 500,000 Norwegian kroners, maybe 1 million. And then at the end of that proof of concept, there's nothing you can use. And if you want to go on with it, you have to start from scratch. No, but rather think in new ways. How can you try out things in a much shorter time period and verify, is this is this doable? Can we have some kind of minimum viable product earlier? Try to do things lighter with less risk, because as a business leader, the less risk involved in your decision, the more likely you are to make the decision to go on.
Absolutely.
Right? So if we all can just accept that as a leader, they need to balance risk with outcome. How can we help that? How can we make that move forward?
Do you believe the field of consultancy will also change in the future, that we'll have more results-driven consultancy? Or
Yes.
is that on the business side, that they actually have to ensure that they act upon the tips?
Seen from the consulting side, the traditional time and material approach is a really hard way of running business, because you're always pushing for the invoicing rate. And all consulting companies are trying to find new business models. And I'm sure some companies will solve that at some point and start delivering in new ways. It's easier said than done. And but I think in the future we will see more partnerships, more ecosystems. And basically that is because the technology is developing so fast that each company on its own will not be able to develop resources internally and the competences internally to have all the skills and the capacity they need, which means that they would have to collaborate much more. So I think we will see, particularly for medium-sized and smaller medium-sized companies, that they will have new ways of working together.
I absolutely believe that as well, because you can't be an expert in everything anymore. It's so much different to choose from.
Yeah.
So finally, just last question, because we're running out of time. For business leaders of tomorrow, what would you recommend them to do? If just a short 2-3 sentence answer. Like, what should they focus on?
You need to understand digital technologies, but you need to understand the business application of them and the application for society. So I think that would be my number one of today.
Perfect.
And then one more thing, as also some of the other speakers pointed out, we need to realize that the bias we have with us as humans is much worse than the bias of machines. So we need to see the bias in our own eyes as well and realize that we don't make objective decisions.
No, absolutely not.
And if you want to have a different workforce in the future, you need to also look for different skills with different criteria than what you have been using previously.
Completely agree. Perfect. Thank you, Elin.
Thank you for inviting.